First Minister, in your foreword to new leadership, A Fresh Start, you say, I pledge to earn and re-earn the respect and trust of the people of Scotland. And you go on to say at the end of the document, it is imperative that transparency underpins our approach to delivery. My government will ensure the people of Scotland have the information they need to hold us to account. In conducting our inquiry into the ferries, vessels 801 and 802 over the last year, the Public Audit Committee has been met with ministerial non-cooperation, senior civil servants evading scrutiny, government bodies omitting evidence or unable to find evidence which then later turns up. So the public need to be assured that this will not happen again. Will you and the Permanent Secretary now mount a review of government accountability and transparency to Parliament?
Can I thank Richard Leonard for the question, and before I answer it, can I say my thanks to the Conveners Group for the invitation, and I look forward to what will be a wide-ranging discussion, I'm sure. I can absolutely commit to reviewing and examining and looking at what more the government can do to be as transparent as possible. And there are, again, a range of areas that we can explore and examine. Our response time to FOIs, for example, is something I've already spoken to the Minister for Parliamentary Business and actually to Ministers and Cabinet Secretaries right across the board. In terms of Ferguson's, I suppose the added complexity, and this is not some sort of excuse that I'm trying to leverage here, but there are issues, genuine issues around commercial sensitivity, and of course not putting the yard at a competitive disadvantage. We want the yard to continue to not just bid, but hopefully win contracts in the future. So there are some reports where the very firm advice is that if we release these reports, for example, it would put the yard at a competitive disadvantage. But I take the point that Richard Leonard is making. More than happy to see what more can be done, not just around Ferguson's, but generally in relation to what more we can do to be as transparent as possible. I think we have a good record on that, but I would like to see what more and what further we could do.
Well, let me not dwell on commercial matters then. Only today, the committee published your government's response to our ferries report, and the committee still has to consider it, but it was almost a week late. I don't know whether you've seen the response we got from your Minister for Transport or not, but it rather cherry-picks and notes our recommendations and conclusions using, I have to say, very few words, and says, frankly, very little. So really my question is to you, is this the kind of fresh start to transparency that we would expect? And secondly, will you publish the findings of Barry Smith KC's investigation into whether the procurement process was rigged, as alleged in the BBC disclosure programme?
Well, on that second issue, of course, we take those issues that were raised by the BBC very, very seriously indeed. That's why, of course, there is an investigation underway. And again, I'm more than happy to look at what can be published, because I am absolutely committed to not just being transparent, but making sure that Parliament is updated as soon as we possibly can in relation to any issues, let alone the ones that we are discussing in regards to Ferguson's shipyard. And an example of that, of course, would be that when the request came in from the accountable officer for written authority, we made sure that Parliament was updated via ministerial statement the first available opportunity. So we will stand up to take scrutiny, of course, on these matters. I just go back to the point that there are some areas and issues in relation to Ferguson's in particular that are commercially sensitive, that if we were to release completely unredacted, for example, some reports, then it would put Ferguson's at a competitive disadvantage. I'm happy to look at the request that Richard Leonard has made, take some advice on it, but I am absolutely committed to being not just upfront and transparent, but making sure that Parliament is notified as soon as we possibly can on really important developments in relation to Ferguson's.